So I'm trying another one of these crazy, just off the top of my head videos for the podcast. And I'm sitting outside on the porch of our little studio building out the back in the garden. And I have dog number one, Ollie, in my lap. And dog number two, where is she? This is going to look very strange on your screen, but there's Kathy beside me. Here's what I want to talk about in this episode of the podcast: the hardest thing that a creative typically faces, and that is the blank page. And what sort of strategies, low key or low impact strategies, can one use to try and avoid that dreaded situation? So I'm going to give a couple of examples that I've done in the past, which may generate some ideas for yourself. And let's just get right into it. So, the first example I'm going to use is something that I did a couple of months after I retired in 2022. So, I had some time on my hand. We had an older dog at that time who didn't need a lot of attention, and I was able to devote several hours a day to the studio if I chose to do that. And a couple of months into my retirement, I decided to do a so called 100-day project. And what I decided to do for my 100-day project was make a small prototype book each day for 100 days. And if you're interested to see what those books look like, I'll show some examples as I talk about this going along in the podcast. Also, if you check out my Instagram account, the link is in my channel description, and you scroll down to 2022, you will see the 66 books that I ultimately did make. I had to terminate the project after 66 days because of a family crisis. The great thing about it was I ended up with 66 different prototypes of books that I could make or that I could use as a point of departure to make another variation or a different kind of a book. So if I go to the studio and I think to myself, I want to make a book, but I don't know what I'm going to do, I have a resource that I can dip into, take a look through, pick out an example, start from there. I have a starting point. I don't have a blank page. And this was really revolutionary. And although I chose to document this process on a daily basis for my Instagram account, I did that mainly because I was concerned about accountability. Would I really do this or would I not do it? And so I decided what I would do was I would document it by posting a series of photos of each book after I'd finished making it for the day on Instagram to keep myself accountable. But I could have done it without doing that, as it turns out. And the resource would be just as valuable as it otherwise would have been. The key was that I wasn't trying to make a finished product. I wasn't trying to make something I was going to sell or something I was going to send to someone or something I was going to submit to a gallery for a show. I just made these books using different ideas for materials, different ideas for the content and how to produce the content, different types of book styles or bookbinding styles. And this was just a fantastic resource. I was so happy that I did it. I was really pleased about that. So that's example number one. You might be thinking that, well, wait a second. Surely at day 42, after you'd finished making that book and you went into your studio on day 43, you were looking at a blank page. And how does this solve that problem? Well, what I did was at the end of each day, I settled on an idea that I wanted to do the following day. So I didn't have a lapse or a blankness that I had to face the next day I went into the studio. So that helped. Okay, so what about the other strategy that I'm trying to do? Well, I've had this long-standing fight with myself about I want to keep a journal, blah, 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 and yet I never really keep the journal. I start a journal, but you know what? I don't keep it up. I'm not a journalist, so to speak, in that sense. I'm not a journaling type of person, but I love notebooks. I love to keep notebooks, and I dip back into notebooks where I've just jotted down ideas. And what I've decided recently is I want to just start doing a notebook on a daily basis, keeping a notebook up on a daily basis, but at very low stakes. And the low stakes are as long as I do something that's going to end up in the notebook, even if it doesn't actually make it into the notebook that day, I'm working on my notebook. So, for example, yesterday I printed out a number of images that I've made recently and images from a project that I've been mulling over for years, literally. Oh, there go the dogs. And, oh, one of them is chasing a butterfly, hoping to catch it. That's odd. Aspirational. That's my dogs. My dogs are very aspirational. So where was I? Oh yes. So I was printing images for the notebook that I'm currently keeping up. Some were images that I made recently that I've talked about in the previous episode of the podcast, and some were from a project that I called That Summer that I started many years ago. I've got the images, but I've never really known what to do with the images, so I've printed those out as well. So yesterday I printed the images, 4 on a page. I cut the page up so each image can be glued into the notebook. And after I finish recording this, I'm going to go into the studio and I'm going to glue them into the notebook. And I'm going to start making noting down some thoughts or just observations about the images, and not really intending necessarily to take them any further at this stage. I just want to have a notebook that I can happen upon from time to time, start leafing through and go, oh, hey, wait a second, that looks kind of interesting. Maybe I can do something with this. So that's my strategy or my ideas behind not facing the dreaded blank page. And I hope this, at the very least, gives you some ideas of your own, of things that you might do so that you don't face the blank page when you go into the studio. And as I've tried to indicate, and let me be more specific about this, I'm holding my phone with my hand, so I'm sorry the image is rather shaky at the moment. That's not very good technique, obviously. Here's the thing. It doesn't have to be a huge commitment, and it's low stakes. You're not trying to produce a beautiful work of art. You're not trying to produce a magnus opus or the greatest thing you've ever done. You're just trying to play around with ideas. No stakes. Just put them in a notebook or in a folder. Sometimes when I'm writing music, I get little scraps of things that I have in my DAW, and I just put the file in a folder called ideas and just leave them there. And then if I need to write some music for a video, for example, I might check out that folder and take something from the folder and start using it. I just want to end by saying, you are creative, you're unique. I just share ideas that have helped me, and I'm not saying that you should do this necessarily, but perhaps you could certainly try if you want to. I found them helpful, but you can also just use this as a starting point to think of things that would make more sense to you. And my dog's barking again, so I'm going to say thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. And I didn't say at the start, so I'll say it now and then I'll splice it into the start, I suppose. But I'm Paul from Studio Centrale, and this is the Humble Creative Podcast. Thanks for watching.